It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey there, my beautiful rebels. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, queen bee of this hive, as well as your feminist life coach, psychotherapist, and apparently a big-time witch. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that's been haunting women for centuries, quite literally. We're talking about the history of witch hunts, from misogyny to modern-day smears. Now, before you think this is just a trip through dusty old history books, oh no, my friends, this is our story. Because witch hunts did not end with broomsticks, bonfires, or black cats. They just evolved. They got smarter, quieter, and sometimes even dressed themselves up as concern or criticism. And the more we understand their roots, the better we can recognize when society still tries to burn women metaphorically at the stake. So grab your tea or your potion of choice, light a candle if you want to set the mood, and let's unravel the truth together. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Kelly, it's like literally December. Why are we talking about witches? Spooky season is over. Well, I wish it was that simple. Unfortunately, we are still, every single day, not just during Halloween season, we are still impacted by the history of witches. And I'm just really inspired by it all. I'm inspired by women throughout history who stuck to who they were despite what was happening to them. They are my inspiration. I am trying to be just like them in that I am being unapologetically myself. And so I share these stories because they're fascinating to me, but also I feel like we're still impacted by them. And as women, we need to understand our history. And instead of being held down by it, we need to turn it around and empower ourselves with it. That has been my goal, my personal goal, as I've gotten older, to really reflect on my own personal history. And instead of getting bogged down by the bad things that have happened to me, I'm using them. I'm using them as fuel to empower myself, which enables me to empower others. So let's jump into the origin of the witch hunt. We're going to rewind to medieval and early modern Europe. Between the 15th and 18th centuries, somewhere between 40,000 and 60,000 people were executed for witchcraft. And here's the kicker. About 80% of them were women. In some regions, that number was even higher. The witch hunts weren't really about magic or sorcery. They were about control. As the church and the state fought to maintain power, they needed a scapegoat. And women, especially those who stepped outside patriarchal norms, became the perfect target. Midwives, herbalists, healers, widows, outspoken wives, that's me right there, and women without male protection. All of them were vulnerable. And it's funny, as I reflect on that list, I see myself in a couple of categories there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I can see where I would have been someone who was burned. And why? Why was this happening? Why were these women targeted? Well, because these women had knowledge. They knew how to heal, how to bring life into the world, how to comfort the dying. They were connected to the rhythms of nature, to cycles and wisdom that could not be controlled or taxed or dictated by authority. And that kind of independence, it terrified men who were used to being the sole holders of power. So what did they do? Well, they demonized it, of course. The label witch became a tool, a weaponized word to silence, isolate, and destroy women who dared to exist outside of the mold. The very thing that I encourage women every day to do. Don't put yourself in a box. Step outside the box. Step outside your comfort zone. Be who you are. As I sit here right now and reflect on what I do in my work with women, oh my gosh, if history was present, I would be damning these women to being labeled a witch and to being killed. The infamous Malleus Maleficarum, published in 1487 by two German inquisitors, was basically the witch hunter's Bible. It described women as weaker in faith and more carnal than men, making them more susceptible to witchcraft. Translation: every natural part of womanhood, sexuality, emotion, intuition, was suddenly suspect. If a woman was too outspoken, too sensual, too smart, or too independent, witch. She was a witch. If she aged without marrying or dared to live alone, witch. If a child died, a crop failed, or a man's ego was bruised, well, you guessed it, witch. It was mass misogyny wrapped in religious panic, and it served a political and cultural purpose. It kept women afraid. It fractured female solidarity and reinforced the belief that women's power was dangerous. Now let's move into the American connection. Fast forward to the late 1600s, the Salem witch trials. 19 people were executed, most of them women, because a group of girls had fits and accused townsfolk of witchcraft. But beneath the hysteria were deeper fears. Fears of female autonomy, social disruption, and rebellion against patriarchal order. The women accused often owned property, challenged male authority, or simply just did not fit into the mold of the good, obedient Puritan woman. Sound familiar? These witch trials were as much about policing women's behavior as they were about any belief in dark magic. And here's something that few people realize. The Salem trials came at a time of political uncertainty, social stress, and fear. When communities feel powerless, they look for someone to blame. And historically, women have been an easy target. The same playbook has been used for centuries. When systems are threatened, the powerful redirect attention towards dangerous women instead of examining their own corruption. And here's what's wild. The language and mechanisms of witch hunts did not vanish with the colonies. They simply just changed form. The public shaming, the accusations, the demand for obedience, it's all still here. We just call it by different names now. So let's talk about these modern day witch hunts. Today, we may not be burning women at the stake, but the spirit of the witch hunt is alive and thriving especially in how women are treated when they dare to step into their power. Think about it. When powerful women speak their minds, whether it's politicians, artists, CEOs, or activists, they are labeled as nasty, emotional, unhinged, or too ambitious. Society still punishes women for traits that are praised in men. Look at how the media treats women like Meghan Markle, Taylor Swift, or even Vice President Kamala Harris. Every choice they make is dissected, judged, and often vilified. Their confidence is recast as arrogance, their empathy as weakness, and their success as manipulation. That, my friends, is modern witch hunting. Public shaming designed to silence and control. Even in our everyday lives, it shows up subtly. A woman who negotiates for fair pay is greedy. A woman who sets firm boundaries is cold. A woman who expresses anger is hysterical. And when women gather together in solidarity, whether in feminist movements, protest marches, or even just group chats, they are called radical. Again, sound familiar? It's just the new vocabulary of the same old fear. We also see it online. Women being targeted, trolled, or canceled at higher rates than men. It is not a coincidence. Ladies, society still burns women. Only now, it's with tweets, comments, and algorithms, instead of torches and stakes. And I am here to ask you to please not participate in it. Ladies, we need to rise together. We need to support one another. We do not need to participate in these witch hunts. Now, let's talk about the psychology behind the witch hunts. Because as a psychotherapist, I can tell you, witch hunts have always been a projection of fear. Fear of women's autonomy, their sexuality, their emotional depth, and their collective power. The witch has always represented something that patriarchy could not control. This is why I started this podcast. I am trying to build the collective power of women. I am trying to amplify women's voices and stories so that we can remember that we are in this together. Together, we can change the world. For centuries, women's intuition, emotional intelligence, and cyclical wisdom have been dismissed, mocked, or demonized, when in fact, these are sources of profound strength. The witch archetype is the untamed feminine. She's the woman who refuses to apologize for knowing herself, for commanding her space, for trusting her instincts. And that's exactly why she's so threatening in patriarchal systems. But here's the reframe. Reclaiming the word witch today isn't about casting spells under a full moon. It is about owning your sovereignty. It's about saying, I trust myself. I believe in my own power. The modern witch is the healer, the truth teller, the creator, the boundary setter. She is every woman who is tired of shrinking to make others comfortable. Ladies, when you embrace your inner witch, you stop asking for permission. You stop explaining your worth. You stop apologizing for existing. You know what? I was reflecting on this as I was reviewing the episode, because I wrote this episode a couple weeks ago before I recorded it. And I just had this moment, this light bulb moment, because I struggle personally with trusting my own intuition, trusting my gut, right? And it's because for literal centuries, it has been beaten out of us. We're not supposed to. We can't trust our intuition. We can't connect with the universe, with nature, and allow that to guide us. We have to have these subscribed rules. Creativity is not encouraged. 2 + 2 = 4, and that's it. Whatever happened to experimenting and being creative and trusting our gut in creating beautiful things just based on our connection outside of ourselves? When I really sat and thought about this, I don't want to say I had a sense of shame come over me, but it was almost like that. More sadness and disappointment, because I crave connection outside of myself. I crave connection to nature. I crave my spirituality. And my spirituality got drowned out by logic and having to think in a different way instead of allowing myself to be exactly who I am. But thankfully, that trust is starting to come back. It's so funny. I feel like this podcast has done so much for me also. And that's not why I started this. I started this to give back, to give to other women. And it turns out all of the research that I do, all of these facts that I dig up are empowering me too. And it's been this beautiful collateral benefit that I've had, because every day that I speak into this microphone, I am more and more empowered, because I am starting to trust myself more. I am starting to be exactly who I am instead of trying to fit into the mold that society has created for me. All right, my empowered listeners and queens, let's talk about what we can do. Because awareness is powerful, but action is transformation. How do we stop modern witch hunts? Well, the first step is to recognize the language. When you hear women being called crazy, bossy, shrill, or too emotional, challenge it. These words are modern witch hunt language meant to control and discredit women. Call it out when you hear it. In the boardroom, in the media, or even in your own head. I'm telling you, I still have to do that. It's embarrassing to admit it. But there are times when I say to myself, "Oh, Kelly, you are being a crazy bitch. Cut the crap." No, I'm not being a crazy bitch. I am experiencing emotions, feelings, and guess what? I'm allowed to. All right, before I go off on another tangent, let's get to step number 2. This is one of my favorites. Support other women publicly. When you see a woman being torn down, whether online, in your community, or at work, speak up. Amplify her voice. Defend her character. Witch hunts thrive on silence and separation. Solidarity is the antidote. Now, I'm not telling you to go into every controversial Facebook post and go into the comment section and beat up on the trolls, because you will emotionally exhaust yourself, because there are way too many people out there tearing people down in the comment section. Instead, try maybe a smaller scale that's not so draining, because I'm telling you, you could literally spend 24 hours a day doing that, because there's so much garbage online. You know that. I don't need to go any further on that one. But seriously, support other women publicly. And if you don't like a woman, like a woman politician or a woman celebrity or whatever, just don't consume what she's putting out there. You don't need to tear her down. If you don't like someone's music, you don't need to attack her character. Just scroll on by. Just walk away. Just listen to a different artist. Just watch a different movie. Do not participate in the witch hunt of tearing women down. All right. Step number 3. Reclaim your intuition. That gut feeling, that inner knowing, that, ladies, is your magic. Do not suppress it to fit in. Honor it, trust it, and let it guide you. Our ancestors were punished for their wisdom. We get to live it out loud. So let's make the most of it. And if you're having a hard time with this one, like I am, do the work. Do the work to start trusting yourself all over again. Because she's in there. You got to trust her. She knows what she's talking about. And then step number 4, learn the real history. Read about the witch trials, the women who were persecuted, and how those systems of control still echo today. Knowledge is a form of protection. When you understand the patterns, you can break them. When you have the knowledge, you can fight back with facts. That's what I love to do. That's why I read the Bible cover to cover 3 times. Because when I argue with someone, it's because I am right. I cannot be right unless I know what I'm talking about. As I'm telling you, as I started reading more and more about the witch trials, which, by the way, were not covered very well in school, there was a fire inside of me that was just screaming to learn more. I want to go to Salem. I want to go to the place of the witch trials. I want to be there on that, what I consider to be hallowed ground. I want to be where it happened, to know, to understand, to connect, to feel. And who knows, that you may get inspired doing the same thing, reading, learning about the actual history. Because it's our time now, ladies. Men have been running the world for far too long, and it is time for us to take back our power and to join the fight. And so that moves us into step number 5, reframe your power. Stop apologizing for your ambition, your sensuality, or your voice. Remember, the same traits that once got women labeled as witches are the traits that make us innovators, leaders, and revolutionaries today. What they once feared in us is exactly what the world needs right now. And finally, final step number 6, create safe spaces for women. Whether that's a circle of friends, a support group, or even your workplace culture, build environments where women can be seen, heard, and celebrated instead of judged. The more we normalize empowered women, the fewer witches there are left to burn. This is one of the things where I decided to create the Facebook group, the Hint Hive podcast Facebook group, because I wanted a safe space for women to chew on the episodes, to support one another, to bitch about something if they needed to, whatever it is. If you have the ability to create safety for another woman, do it. We need it. All right, this quote of the week comes to you adapted from Anne Teresa's work on modern feminism. The day will come when the rest of the world will see that witch hunts never really ended. They just learned to tweet. So here is your reminder, my beautiful queens of the hive. The witch hunts of the past were designed to make us afraid of our own power. But we are the descendants of the women they could not burn, the daughters of the ones who refused to disappear. The world may still try to shame or silence us, but we are no longer hiding. We are rising. Spell by spell, truth by truth, generation by generation. Ladies, you are allowed to be powerful. You are allowed to be loud. You are allowed to take up space, to speak truth, to defy expectations, and to shake the foundations of every system that ever told you not to. Because the truth is, they only hunt witches when they are afraid of their magic. All right, my gal pals, if today's episode lit a spark in you, share it with a sister, a friend, or a fellow fire starter who needs to remember her power. Leave a review, spread the word, and come join our community on Facebook, the Hint Hive podcast group. There, we keep the conversation alive, we support one another, and yes, we cast empowerment spells made of honesty, laughter, and rebellion. Come join us. Until next time, ladies, stay bold, stay magical, and never let anyone dim your fire. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.